Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to episode 35 of the Josh Diaz vlog. Um, I'm a little bit overstimulated today. All evening, I have been arguing with people on social media, or not arguing with people. Many people have been in agreement, but in addition to the video I put out last night on this YouTube channel, I put out a TikTok video about, hey, any employers that are requiring employees to get vaccination or show proof of vaccination, hey, shame on you guys. And honestly, what I realized is that it came from a couple different places. This has affected numerous members of my family. They have legitimately lost work. They've lost their ability to earn a living in one way or another, or have had the threat of losing their means of earning a living surrounding this whole vaccine thing. And again, I have not done deep dives into these subjects like I did at the onset of this whole charade that we've experienced. When things first came around, I felt like, hey, as a small business person and trying to navigate the effects of the issues that were incoming, it was important for me to be as educated as I possibly could be. But I realized it was not really based on logic. It wasn't really based on the facts or the reality, or even, let's just say, a measured interpretation of reality. Right? No cost benefit analysis. It was just an overwhelming push in one direction. And so, all that being said, I realized at a certain point in time that it wasn't worth my time to keep up with, all of the hot news off the press of, hey, all of the new coronavirus updates or anything like that. So I haven't done, there was a time where I did a deep dive into masks because I wasn't buying it. So I was reading the white papers that were on the CDC's website and doing my own research and listening to different experts in order to be kind of best equipped to have those conversations around the idea of masks. But by the time this notion of vaccines had come around, I was just already so disillusioned with the propaganda and the narrative, the mainstream narrative that is being pushed in front of us, that I kind of got to a point where it's like I don't even really care about the specifics of this vaccine or that vaccine or immunity, or it's all very silly to me. And but it's affecting the people that I hold nearest and dearest to my heart. So just in a moment of I just kind of free flow thinking and putting words together, I put out a video, and this was the point that I was getting at, where ultimately my the point of the video that I can't remember exactly about the YouTube one I published last night, but the TikTok one was that it felt like kind of talking to peers, right? So in the same way that a guy that I really respect, Greg Anderson, was a Seattle police officer when these shutdowns first started, he put out a video that went viral, that where he was kind of talking cop to cop, right? And he was kind of trying to put in check his fellow law enforcement people to say, hey, there's limits to our authority as police officers. Let's not go trampling on people's constitutional rights. So in a similar fashion, I on TikTok put out what I thought was a similar kind of called point of order to my fellow employers or managers or people in business or management or anything along those lines, which is just to say, hey, if you're imposing or being an agent of the state and imposing, if you're imposing the state's will or your own will on your employees when it comes to personal medical decisions, shame on you. And that was the point of the video. And maybe to expand a little bit more, put some nuance behind it, is that we all have a choice, right? We all have a choice when it comes, even if you were to make the excuse, if you were to say, hey, we are, we're required, or we're being pressured into it, or the state is kind of imposing this policy on us. We all get to choose whether or not we're going to accept and deliver that guidance, if we're going to, if we get to accept, if we're going to impose rules, and how we're going to impose rules. And I think this, I did point out, was the ammo store, the gun store up in Linwood that they had the sign. They were in compliance, but it made very clear that they were not going to be agents of the state to impose the governor's office will on everyone. So that was the simple message. And I've gotten sucked. Well, many people have kind of jumped on board to support that idea, and some people are arguing kind of tooth and nail regarding this whole vaccine thing, which just seems crazy and silly. And I did a follow-up video to that, just asking the question, okay, if this vaccine works so well, and again, it's to protect you, and everyone who wants it has access to it, why are you so concerned on whether or not I have it? And it's not something that I deal with or think about or whatever on a daily basis, but I just, because having put that initial video out, and I tried to do a good job on responding to all the comments, and so I got deep into it, and a lot of people really do seem concerned about, hey, you should be doing this, imposing their will on other people in that regard. And I think it's a shame. I think the beautiful thing about the history of this country was the amount of freedom that we got to experience to pursue our own interests. And one of the big counterpoints I heard across the board to this video was, hey, these private businesses can do whatever they want, which, first of all, that's not true. I wish it were true. And so it's kind of funny, to be honest. If I had more time, if I were to sit down with these people face to face, I would actually say that, hey, if we were in an environment where businesses could truly do whatever they want, I think businesses should be allowed to discriminate on any factors that they so choose. I mean, they do anyways, but there's certain limitations put up, and there's these certain boundaries that maybe apply in some cases and not in others. But I think if a business wants to discriminate based on race, they should absolutely be able to do that. If it turns out to be I may not necessarily agree with that, but if the community that they're in accepts that as a practice, then they will stay in business. Or if the community that they serve finds that despicable, then they will lose business, and they'll have to either change their practices or risk going out of business, right? And so on a principle level, I agree with the notion that businesses should, quote unquote, in theory, be able to do whatever they want within certain boundaries, as long as they're not harming other people. And when I say businesses, really what we're just talking about are groups of people, right? So individuals should be able to collaborate and exchange with one another in a voluntary way, in whichever way they choose. And so if we were in an environment where businesses really were free, I would have no problem with companies requiring their employees to get vaccinated or not, because then, just like some people pointed out, then those employees would be free to go work at other places. But the difference between the reality of what we're in and the ideal situation of where I'd be totally okay to go is these businesses don't have that freedom, right? They don't have that freedom to choose. Many of them, this guidance is being imposed on them by the government, right? So the state is saying, hey, in federal guidelines for hospitals across the country, or state mandates in order to be in compliance with certain health codes, and X, Y, and Z are putting a tremendous amount of pressure on businesses to comply with this, or to push and pressure their employees into getting it. So that's not an even playing field. That's not, alleviate that pressure and then say, hey, you can do whatever you want. Well, then maybe some businesses will require it, others won't. And you'd have an even playing field and a free market for people to decide for themselves. But I think it's unfair to say, hey, well, businesses can do whatever they want. But meanwhile, the government is using their regulatory tools. They're using the funding tools that they have control over many organizations to push this vaccine. So that being said, I don't think about this subject that often or really care. Like, one person said, "Oh, well, what do you have against vaccines?" And I said, I don't have any problem with vaccines. I actually don't know that much about them. I just don't like the idea of our government at any level jamming it down our throats and making this personal medical decision for people and putting this tremendous amount of pressure, especially when you hear super smart people like Pierre Corey and Brett Weinstein saying, hey, there's actually this other drug. It's basically a silver bullet. It's basically a magic pill named ivermectin that would solve all these problems. And especially when I had COVID. So why would I want to go through the trouble of quote unquote protecting myself against something that my immune system has already successfully fought off? So it just seems like there's a lot of hysteria around the subject, and I'm not a very hysterical person. I prefer to approach these things from kind of an even tempered mentality and engage with people as such. And when I see people getting wound up on either side of the issue, I don't go for that. So we'll keep it short tonight. Again, I think I'm just, like I said, a little overstimulated from engaging with so many of these people this evening and trying to keep up with the different threads. And one funny one was one person, we were going back, and it was starting to get technical, and this is where I'm just like, okay, neither of us are experts on the subject. But he said something that sounded absurd to me. He's talking, because I had heard something about, there's the possibility that you can have an allergic reaction to any medical treatment that's administered, right? And so that's just a basic one where I say, hey, well, should people be forced to get it if they would have, an allergic reaction? He said, well, if they have an allergic reaction to the first dose, then they shouldn't be required to get the second dose. And I was like, wow, so, with people with a history of allergic reactions, you want to give them the first dose just to test it out. What are you, a doctor? And he's like, well, no, I'm a pharmacist though. And ended up kind of continuing to make some really tough points. And I cracked up at that because I was not expecting. You're just arguing with random people online and you're thinking, who's this Joe Schmo kind of wilding out on my page? And come to find out he's a pharmacist. So I had to really gear up and get smarter on the subject and use Google to my advantage. So anyhow, I will leave you all with that. I hope you're all doing well. Again, I don't even know if there's anything worthwhile there. So I'll let you be the judge of that. But I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're having a productive summer and week. And we're rolling. We're already cruising into the heart of the week. It's Monday's already over, so hope you're all doing well, and I'll see you all tomorrow.